And we're live. Hi, everyone. My name
Yeah.
is Coach Kayla. I am a dietitian and online nutrition and running coach, and I'm here with Cindy, and she's going to tell us her story. She's a member of this group, and I know she has a really great story. Is a plant-based athlete, has done triathlons, and I just really wanted her to come in this group, and I know she's wanted to do this as well, and share a little bit of her story. So welcome. Thank you guys for being here. Sorry we are a little bit behind, but technical difficulties happen, and that's okay. But we're here and we're excited. Anika's here. Hi, Anika. Welcome. Good afternoon. If you are joining live, I just ask, say hey, say hello to us so we know you're on. And then if you watch this on replay, just comment below replay. Also, we are going live using StreamYard, so just make sure if you would like me to be able to see your name and who's commenting, just click that link above this video and allow StreamYard to show your name. Okay, so I think that's it. So we'll just get right into our interview today. So Cindy, just introduce yourself and, who are you? And we'll start there.
Okay. So, my name is Cindy. I just turned 50 yesterday. Um,
Woo! Happy birthday!
Thank you. So let's see, I'm a nurse, a new nurse. I just changed careers about 3 years ago, and yeah, I've always been interested in um, nutrition and eating healthy. Though, back in the 80s and 90s, and we always didn't understand exactly what healthy meant.
Mhm,
I feel like I've been on this long journey, and it's finally coming to fruition.
mhm.
So I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So take us kind of back to the beginning of your journey. Where did everything really start? I guess we'll start with, health wise. Like, when did you kind of make that change and start changing things?
Okay. Um, well, let me start a little bit before that.
Sure.
So I was 12 years old when the very first Ironman triathlon was on TV. And I was glued to the TV. I didn't sit down. I was like 3 feet away from the TV. I was mesmerized. And I watched the entire, it was a recap back then, but I watched the entire race. I was like, oh my God, at 12 years old, I knew I wanted to do this. And,
Mhm.
everybody laughs at me, like, whatever, But that year, at 12 years old, I did my very first triathlon.
No way.
Yeah, it was a little sprint triathlon,
Awesome.
so maybe 500-yard swim, 16-mile bike, I think, and
Mhm.
a 3-mile run. And I was hooked. The community was amazing. Um, and, I was like, you know what? Everybody seems to have swimming be their last or their weakest event. So I immediately joined a swim team.
Nice.
And I think that's where um, my interest in healthy eating and nutrition, um, uh, and well, basically health started.
Yeah.
But we didn't know that I also have celiac. And so back in the 70s and 80s and 90s, we were carbo loading a lot with pasta dinners and waffles for breakfast. And so, uh, I had all these weird things show up. I had gotten straight A's in grade school and was reading at a high school college level in fifth grade. And then in seventh grade, 3 weeks after school starts, I took a state assessment test and I failed it. And of course, instead of getting the help I needed, because we didn't know, I was grounded pretty much. And um, for the rest of my middle school, high school career, school was a struggle. And I always did worse in swim season. Um, didn't know why. We thought I was just too stressed or too busy. Um, and yeah, so um, during my academic career, whether it was college or whatever other kind of class I tried to take, it was always a struggle.
Mhm.
And I was always told, I'm smart, you just got to try harder. Well, nobody explained to me what trying harder meant. So I was always, taking more classes or, just, I don't know. But it just never really worked out. So I failed out of 3 college programs and finally found therapeutic recreation. Absolutely loved the field. I became a wilderness guide and did that for about 13 years full time. And did not know that I was allergic to most of the food that we ate because of celiac. And so let's see. I was also born with a birth defect, a cardiac birth defect, and always had sports-induced asthma. And the harder I worked, the more I would cough. And occasionally I would have dizzy spells, but I never complained about them. I didn't know what was wrong. So when I was 32, I had emergency heart surgery to repair the birth defect. And that was towards the beginning of my wilderness guide career. So I recovered in the woods, slowly built my endurance back up, and continued to guide. And then when I was 42, found out, or the wilderness career came to an end. And at that point, I was starting to figure out the celiac issues and cut out gluten and started to notice a change and started to, I guess, study and try to look up as much information as possible about celiac and nutrition and like all the symptoms and and it was just amazing to me. So a friend of mine was like, you really need to do something about this. And he meant more professionally. And at the time, I wasn't capable of changing careers, even though the wilderness guide was coming to an end. I didn't have the resources to go back to school. So he helped me out and pretty much put me through school and helped me get back on my feet to be a nurse. And so that was the beginning of my journey for to start to get back, get into plant-based and nutrition and lifestyle as a career. So,
cool. So
yeah.
cool. Wow. Wow. So with your heart condition, now you said that you had heart surgery?
I did.
Heart surgery?
I did. I was 32 years old. I had finally finished school. I finished school about a week before September 11th. And as a recreation degree, the jobs that I had were in grant money. And somehow the grant money disappeared. So I didn't have a job for almost a year and a half. And I finally found a job at a wilderness company. And 6 weeks later, ended up in the hospital. And I was super lucky. The job that we had, for whatever reason, the insurance started the first day you worked. And otherwise my heart would not have been covered. And so that pretty much saved my life. So it was an atrial septal defect. And so it was a simple repair, simple heart surgery. But what we didn't know was there's a possibility that there could have been a medical mistake in that surgery. And we didn't know about it until 3 years ago. So wow. In 2003, after the surgery, I slowly start to build up my endurance again. And I'm backpacking. I'm pretty slow, but I was also carrying an 80-pound backpack. So why wouldn't you be slow? Yeah. So around, I was never able to lose weight after the first surgery. Within that year recovery, I gained 60 to 70 pounds, and I was never able to lose it. And around 2005, I decided that I wanted to get rid of the weight permanently. So I did a cross-country bicycle trip, and it helped me a lot with my my fitness level, but I was eating a lot more pasta and a lot more, the fast carbs. And asthma, was not really a thing, but compared to where I was before the surgery. But looking back, it was still there. And so around 2010, I started to lose fitness level. I was working out as much as I could. I was lifting weights. I was very focused, and that's all I did was work out. And yet I was continuing to lose muscle mass and muscle strength, and it was harder and harder to stay in shape. And, everybody's like, well, you're getting older. I was thinking, I'm only 39. This can't be old. This can't be it. And so around 2010, a friend of mine who is a nutritionist and a diet and a macrobiotic chef urged me to get rid of gluten and dairy. And at the time, I was like, I was living in the woods. I was eating the food that work provided. I didn't think that I would be able to sustain my job and eat the way she wanted me to. I didn't think it was necessary for me, but I also didn't give myself a chance at the time to decide to try it. And so in 2012, the boarding school closed down, and I was like, why don't I give it a try? I had just run a full marathon, and a month after the full marathon, I was still in a lot of pain. I hadn't recovered the way I thought I should. So I cut out gluten, and within 3 days, it was such a change for me that I was in tears. I had belly pain that had been there for so long. I guess kind of gotten used to it and forgotten about it. And it was gone. And the pain in my feet from that marathon was gone within a day or two. And so all of these things cascaded into almost a month into it, 35 symptoms gone. And I really started to think, wow, maybe even though I thought I was eating as healthy as I could, maybe there is something to this. So I played around with just gluten-free for a while, then decided to try to cut out all processed food. And in my head, that's only like the processed junk food. I still wasn't thinking dairy. I still wasn't thinking oil. I definitely still wasn't thinking meat. So I did something that was probably closer to paleo, or maybe 80% plant-based, 90% plant-based. And continued to feel really good. And within 6 weeks of just cutting out gluten, I went from having that very painful recovery from from the full marathon to doing the Goopy Challenge at Disney World, where I didn't hurt the next day. And my full marathon, the day after the half marathon, was faster than the full marathon that was really painful a couple of months before.
Wow.
My recovery was skyrocketing. And in that next year, I ran 12 full and half marathons, and every single one of them was faster and less painful. So, so by the end of that year, I was like, yes, I agreed with my roommate. I really do need to do something with this professionally. People need to know. And went back to nursing school, or went back to school for nursing, hopefully, because at that point I was still struggling, thinking I was going to be struggling with school, because up until this point I hadn't passed anything, and I had such brain fog. So I just started taking random classes at the local college to see what would happen. And high school level chemistry class, I got an A in. Like, how does this happen? And I just kept taking classes just to see what would happen. And all of a sudden I did pass nursing school. And it was pretty amazing. Yeah, I still don't have the words to describe it exactly. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Do you think the change in your diet even helped not just your performance, but also your mental focus, like your brain, your
Yeah.
cognitive function?
Yeah. The more I learn about learning disabilities being linked to celiac for certain people, yes, I really
Okay.
believe it was a pretty big thing. So
Yeah.
at this point, I'm still not even plant-based.
Mhm.
And I finished nursing school, and I've always wanted to do that full Ironman, and decide that I can do what I want. I can do whatever I put my mind to, I can do it.
Yeah.
And but I didn't think about the fact that I'd gone from being a wilderness guide where I was really working out 8 to 10 hours a day to sitting on my butt in nursing school. So my brain is still in shape, but my body wasn't.
Mm.
So I,
Mhm.
as soon as I passed the NCLEX, I was in the car and I was driving out to Nashville so I could cycle the Natchez Trace Parkway. And it's about 900 miles from Nashville down almost to New Orleans and back. And I
Mhm.
did that in 17 days, I think. Um, and then come back, start my nursing job, start working out for um, a half Ironman with the goal to do a full Ironman the next year.
Mhm.
And I did great in that race. I did. I was able to get myself in shape in 16 weeks. I finished with just about a little less than an hour left before the cutoff. I had no pain the next day. I was walking up and downstairs normally. It was pretty amazing. Um, and then the year, not, excuse me, I don't know where that came from, about 2 or 3 weeks um, after the race, I went back into heart failure. And
No.
um, but we didn't know it. I'm a new nurse. I'm working on a pretty busy floor.
Mhm.
I'm struggling. People keep telling me, "Well, nursing's hard," and I'm like, "It can't be this hard," you know. And
Mhm.
so I'm putting all of this stuff off on stress. All of the symptoms that were showing up. Um,
Right.
they talk about, women's heart attacks are, and I was not having a heart attack, but they talk about how women's heart attacks show up differently.
Mhm.
Um, I, when I went back into heart failure, my symptoms for the back pain or the chest pain was actually, it felt like a full on clamp around across my torso, from the bottom of my ribs up to just above um, the top of my neck, just maybe below my ears. That was
Mhm.
one full cramp. It wasn't any
Wow.
better use in any one spot. It was just a full on cramp. So here I am, trying to do more yoga, trying to rest more, trying to give a massage. It just never goes away. And I'm nauseous all the time, but I also have celiac.
Mhm.
So anytime that they brought up the patient trays for lunch,
Mhm.
um, the smell makes me nauseous. So I thought that's what it
Mhm.
was. But it was the smell of me, or excuse me, me being nauseous was a lot longer than just lunchtime. So um, in January, I finally was like, I want to do a full Ironman as soon as I can get past this exhaustion. So, and I hadn't been to a doctor for a while for my birth defect. So I went to a cardiologist, and I ended up having a severe tricuspid regurgitation, which means one of the valves in your heart, um, when it's supposed to clamp closed so that the other part of your heart can work more efficiently. Mine was
Mhm.
flapping in the wind like a flag. And
Oh.
uh, so he's pretty much, like, we're going to have surgery in about 6 months, but didn't really do anything else for me. And I'm thinking,
Mhm.
if this really is what he's saying it is, I don't think I can do my job. And
Mhm.
I was just newly out of nursing school, and the way things happened time wise, I wasn't eligible for the FMLA, so I ended up having to quit that job and found another specialist that was able to work with me a little bit more closely. Um, 'Cause that doctor is really good with adults that grow up from being sick children. He wasn't used to athletes that happened to have birth defects. So I found a great team at Duke University, and he was really able to work with me. Started to help me get back on my feet. And in that time period where he was monitoring me to decide whether or not to have surgery, I saw the movie Forks Over Knives. So that's where things start to come into play with plant-based. And so I had the time. I was getting a little bit more energy, and I started researching all these doctors and where do they live, and what do they do, and are they real people? So I was like, this can't be a real thing. And so I found True North with Dr. Goldhammer and Dr. Clapper, and I researched everything on their website, read all of their research articles, and supposedly lifestyle cardiac issues run in my family. So I'm like, well, if this really does run in my family, it could probably help me too, even though it won't fix a birth defect. So I was looking on True North's website and saw that they had internships for nurses. So I called them up and said, I want in, and they're like, well, they had actually just revamped their program and they weren't accepting nurses anymore. But because it was on the website, they let me in. So I was able to go for 3 weeks, and it was incredible. Because I was working as a nurse, I did not do the water fasting. But I did eat only their food. There's a grocery store next door that sometimes the patients slip out in the middle of the night and try to go hide and buy things that they shouldn't. But I made myself a promise. I ate only the food that they had for the entire 3 weeks I was there. And when I showed up, I had a wet cough. I was on diuretics. I had a severe valve problem and some pulmonary hypertension. And I also had other issues, outside of the heart, that were still linked to celiac. I had some issue with my hip that I didn't think was linked to anything. That no matter yoga that I did or swimming or whatever, it never went away. Within 4 days of being at True North, that pain in my hip went away. And the only time it's come back is when I don't eat the way they want me to. So by the end of the 3 weeks, my wet cough went from that to being a dry cough, and I skipped a couple of my diuretics. I wasn't taking them every day, but I knew that I wouldn't be able to keep this up until I actually was able to talk to my support system at home to say, hey, this is what I really need to do. So I knew that my diuretics were going to stay in my repertoire for a while. But yeah, I've been plant-based ever since. It's really difficult going out to eat with the oil and the salt and the sugar. But for the most part, I make do. And I went to True North in September, October. And the following February, when I went back to my cardiologist, he was shocked. The echoes showed that my valve went from being a severe regurgitation to a mild, moderate regurgitation. And he was able to take the surgery off the table. So, and that was 2018. And now in 2021, it's still always a possibility. On its own, it could still continue to get bad. But as of right now, I am cleared to do whatever I want.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing. So you went from really almost having another surgery to now changing your diet and now being still healthy enough to be able to still compete in triathlons and marathons?
I'm still working on that part.
Okay.
So when I went to True North, well, actually a couple of weeks before, I was still sleeping sometimes 16, 18 hours a day. And there was times I was so tired, I would wake up and not know where I was in my own house. My team at Duke was able to get me on the correct diuretics, and that within a couple of days gave me a lot more energy because I didn't have as much fluid in my lungs. Then through using the diet, the nutrition, slowly that was able to build on that as well. And so through the next year, through all of 2019, I had enough energy to work very part-time as a nurse. I'm working in a psych unit now, or I was. And I would work 1, maybe 2 days a week, but I cannot work 2 days in a row. I don't have the energy for it. And so throughout all of 2019, I did work out an hour a day, in between, the days that I was working. And when I say workout, it's nothing like I was doing before. It's mostly like somebody who has never worked out in their life, where they're starting to build up endurance. When I run, I do use phylmaphotones, heart rate training. And when I keep my heart rate under 140, it, let's see, the October before I started working full time, I could finish a mile in about 50 minutes, 50, according to my heart rate. And by the end of March of 2020, I could finish a mile in about 15 minutes. So still, like my definition of working out now is completely different. And I really miss that kind of endurance training. But mentally my mind is still there. So I'm just trying to use everything, building endurance at work is still part of my Ironman training. My sleep, my nutrition, like everything is still wrapped around what I'm used to with sports. I am lucky to say that my cardiologist has not told me I can't do another Ironman. Is it realistically going to happen? At this point, I don't want to say no. But I know I can't say yes. So, yeah, I still have more energy now than I did 6 months ago. So I'm still building. It's just going to look a lot different. And if I do get to a point where I can do another Ironman, it may be, 20 years. So who knows? Never give up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you mentioned to me as well that you do want to do more health coaching, so helping other people. So tell us what that looks like and kind of what your path is like moving forward, what you're looking forward to doing.
So when I originally became a nurse, I wanted to do 2 years in a medical facility. But my heart took that out. And with me being a wilderness guide, I worked with at-risk teenagers who had gotten kicked out of school or had other issues going on. And I loved that part of it. So my intention being a nurse was I always wanted to get into psychiatric nursing, behavioral health. So I like that part of it, but I also want to combine lifestyle medicine, because everybody, no matter what part of medicine you get into, everybody always has that emotional, mental, psychiatric side of it. So the more I learn about the blue zones, everybody could do something to change for the positive. And the time that I had off with this second heart problem, I was able to get certified as a yoga instructor. I'm working on a holistic nurse certification It's called Whole Health Educator. So I can help people become more, I don't want to say independent, but more knowledgeable about their own health and be able to understand and take charge of what they want. You know, how everybody deals with cancer is different for every person. You know, how everybody deals with the heart issue is different for every person. You know, at some point with a terminal illness, somebody's going to decide, I want to focus on my spirituality more than the medical. You know, they want to enjoy the time that they have versus continue to fight in a different way. It doesn't say that they're stopping fighting. They're just focused on something different. So that certification will help me help others figure out exactly what they want to focus on out of life. And my first bachelor's degree was therapeutic recreation. And just recently I went back and got that certification. So I'll be able to focus on the play, on the medical, on the plant-based nutrition. I just finished the eCornell certification. Yeah, I just finished that a couple weeks ago.
A good one.
Yeah, so I'll be able to have a little whole wraparound coaching business.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's so awesome. Yes, I think that's so important. I think like you just sharing your story is so powerful for people, and to, you know, see how important nutrition is, and just to be there too to help people, because yeah, there's so much that goes into it, right? We know it's not just, you know, your health, you know, it's not just nutrition, it's that, you know, mental and spiritual health, it's that, you know, everything else that goes around it. So I think that's really, really cool, and I'm just so excited for you. It's really, really awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. And let's see, is there anything else that you'd like to share with everybody?
You know, at first, any change is overwhelming, but the more you learn about it, you know, just how do you eat that elephant? You know, one bite at a time.
Yes.
You know, and making a mistake doesn't mean that it's the end all.
Right.
You know, it's something to learn from.
Yeah.
You know, if I make a mistake with gluten, you know, it's going to cause so many issues with me, but I don't want to mentally beat myself up over it, because my body's going to do that enough for me. I don't need to add to it. So yeah, just baby steps, have fun with it.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's so important. I think I say that a lot is, you know, take it one step at a time, and, you know, you just focus on what you can focus on and what you can control. And, you know, it's okay if you're not perfect. You know, I'm not always perfect. I think just yesterday, I actually ate something and it wasn't vegan. And I looked at the ingredients, I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that it wasn't. And it's okay. It's okay. You know, it happens. So I think that's really good advice. Definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for, you know, sharing your story. And yeah, I think you're really going to help a lot of people out there. And I think your story is so powerful, and, you know, keep sharing it and just being there for people to help others. Cause yeah, it's definitely needed. There's so many people out there that, you know, are struggling, and they're like you know, at that time where like you just didn't know what was wrong, right? And you go to your medical professionals and they don't always have all the answers that you want to hear, right? And I think that's so great that you took charge of your health and want to help people do that. Because I think that's just so important. And I saw that too, you know, going through school, you know, wanting to be a dietitian because of that, as seeing people, you know, going to doctors, and, you know, the doctors have very minimal, you know, nutrition education, and they're just putting them on pills. And it's like, wait, we got to find the root cause. And a lot of times, right, it was nutrition that we could change things with. So
Right.
so powerful.
And you just triggered a memory that after I figured out celiac for the longest time, I held I don't want to say a grudge, but um, I really did not want to hear what registered dietitians had to say. And it's interesting
Oh,
because back in the 90s, I worked at the YMCA, and one of their employee benefits, because they had a registered dietitian on staff, was a couple of times a year you could have a free appointment with them.
sure.
So I would go as often as I could because I was also trying to be vegetarian back then. And my family knew, I grew up in Illinois. My family knew that
Mhm.
I was going to, that was the devil. Um, because, I was in farm country and,
Yeah.
that was just not something that you're supposed to do. So I kept very detailed food journals about what I was eating. And I didn't restrict myself for anything.
Mhm.
I just didn't eat meat. And, the dietitian kept telling me, well, if you're going to cut this out, add a little bit more in over here. And nobody really knew anything about celiac back in the 90s. And she kept encouraging more wheat. And
Mm.
I was like, but, I felt like I felt better without meat, but other things were happening that were, being exacerbated.
Yeah.
And, so for the longest time, I was like, I don't want to hear anything they have to say. But
No.
you know, I've also come to terms with the fact that nobody knew what it was back then.
Right.
It wasn't mainstreamed. It was only a little kid disease.
Right.
And yeah,
Yeah.
so
Not a lot of research
I-
yet.
yeah, so I've definitely changed that train of thought. I
Yeah.
thought
That's
I would
tough.
say that to you.
That's tough. It is. It is. Yeah. It
Mhm,
is when that happens, and science just changes so much. And
mhm.
we can only know so much. I think yesterday, and I was talking to my other dietitian friend. We were talking about how we don't even know everything as
Right.
dietitians and as doctors, right? We can't possibly know everything, but we do our best to see where the evidence is. But sometimes too, there's more. Sometimes the medical community, right, needs to catch up to like what we know, right? And I think still with plant-based nutrition, we're still, there's still evidence, right? When you took T. Colin Campbell's course, you probably, we saw all that evidence, but I think still we're still a little bit ahead. I feel like we're still struggling. Like the dietary guidelines just came out and they still include dairy as a recommendation. And it's very frustrating. But
Mhm.
we can only do
Yeah.
the best we can. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And you asked what I would want to share with people. Also, just listen to your body.
yes.
Don't eat that piece of cake because that's what you want, but really listen to your body. I
Mhm.
remember, so I was 5, 6 years old when the packaged salads first came out at McDonald's, and I did not like chicken nuggets. And I didn't know why. I just knew I didn't like them. Well, turned out it's because they got the wheat breading on it.
Oh,
Um, so when we would go to McDonald's, I was always want a salad and the French fries. I was always that weird kid. But it turns out just a couple of weeks ago, I've been able to start working with a functional medicine doctor.
oh,
It
great.
turns out through my DNA that my body truly does not um, let myself process folate. And the folate that I do absorb, I don't utilize it correctly. So
Mm.
even through grade school and middle school, as much as we were carbo loading, all I wanted to do was eat lettuce. All I wanted to do, I could not get enough. And
Mhm.
the I remember an argument with my parents because at one point way back when, um, I don't remember why, but I remember an argument about lettuce being almost $2 a head, and that was expensive for us. And I would, if you'd let me, I would go through 2 a day, just myself. Well, you know, that was my body. That was me trying to listen to my body because
Mhm.
I needed it. I craved it. I
Yeah.
would I would eat lettuce more than I would eat chocolate as a kid.
Wow.
Um, yeah. So it was, listen to your body, and not because of what you emotionally want, but listen to your body.
I like that. I like that. Yes, it's so important to not just listen to what you think you want, right? But what your body actually needs. Because it does. It's smart, right? It craves the foods, the nutrients that are in the food, right? That it needs. It actually craves those, which I think is so crazy. But we've gotten so out of tune, right? Of really listening to our body. And that's what I love how, you took your training to be a yoga instructor, because I think you learn, like, through yoga, right? You learn a lot about really getting in tune with your body and feeling it. I know the more I've been doing yoga, I just can feel every ache and pain. And every time I eat something, if I don't feel well, and I'm like, oh, that didn't make me feel good. Like, I just can feel everything. It's like good and bad at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions before I let Cindy go? We do have a couple people on, but if anyone does have any questions, you can just post them in the comments here. I did have somebody, Mike said, thank you so much. I'll put his comment up here, but he said, thank you so much. This was great. Let's see. Nika said, by the grace of God, you're still here, sharing valuable heart information with all of us. So awesome, awesome. Awesome stuff. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, just comment below. I'll tag Cindy if you do have a question later on. But again, thank you so much for doing this. I'm so glad we were able to make this work. I know you're on your journey and on your move, but good luck with everything, and hopefully you get to Alaska soon and safe and stay warm.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you very much.
welcome. You're
I appreciate
welcome.
you to do this.
Yes, of course, of course. You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.